Hi, folks. This is Mountain Man coming to you from parts unknown. I hope everyone is doing well tonight, and I will upload this video to Rumble as I can't simulcast on this platform I'm using right now. But anyway, uh, I hope you all are having a great evening, and we're going to be discussing what's been going on with Mr. T and our nation. And I continue to monitor these other platforms, channels with all the left wing loop de dupes or whatever you call them, and I, it's astounding. It really is. I don't know how many of them are bots and how many of them are real people, but to some degree, it's unnerving how out of touch they are. But that is the point of a psychological warfare campaign, right? To make people divorce themselves from reality. So anyway, folks, let's see who's coming in. Sissy's here. How you doing? Kicking Bird. Todd, nice to see you. Robin's here. So I did get blocked on last night's stream, and I had to go in and remove the South Park clip. I got an email that said your video is blocked worldwide. Remember that South Park clip I put on there? And now they blocked the whole thing worldwide. Unreal. So anyway, I had to take that out. And also my regular intro video where Trump is saying, we'll put them all in jail where they belong. They unsuccessfully tried to take down the wrong person. That had to go too. So I don't know. Overall, I think we're dealing with much less censorship. This, I don't believe, was a censorship issue. So anyway, we'll see about getting more bold in future broadcasts. But as you can tell by my title, I put a few things in for starters that we're going to talk about. One, actually, a lot of people got verification through Rosie O'Donnell putting out a tweet about the spew, otherwise known as The View, that they are gone, terminated. The channel or their program is, as I put in the thumbnail, on the ash heap of history where they belong. And that is very interesting because we've many times talked about the connection with Disney and ABC. And of course, The View is on ABC. And this came the very same day that Disney announces a settlement with Gina Carano, who was in the Star Wars franchise for Disney and was unceremoniously fired because of some of her social media posts. Innocuous posts that were not blue-haired, nose ring, rainbow flag type posts, and they fired her. And Elon Musk financed her lawsuit. Well, they settled. They settled with her, and I guess the amount is going to be a secret. Yeah, Gina was on The Mandalorian, Todd, right? Hi, Wayne. How you doing? Wayne's giving me a thumbs up. My other broadcast, I forgot to say it through the whole. Hi, Rain. Rain's giving me a thumbs up too. I know Debbie's giving me a thumbs up. Gary, I bet you Gary's going to give me a thumbs up. Gary, are you going to be overseeing the summit in Alaska with Vladimir Putin and Mr. T? That's what they say. Hi, Rebecca. That's what they say is kicking bird. How you doing? That's what they say is in the plan. Yeah. Uh, so the Mandalorian was part of the Star Wars franchise, and it there aren't coincidences. There are no coincidences, and maybe somebody else announced it, but that's how I heard about the View being canceled for sure. Was from a X post, or maybe it was some a Blue Sky post somebody put up from Rosie O'Donnell on the same day that we hear this announcement that Disney settled with Gina. So yeah, I find that very interesting. I find it very interesting. So Trump had a summit today at the White House between two warring nations. Let me pull up my. I don't want to kick myself out of the studio. I have to be careful. And been battling for 35 years. And who was it? The president of Azerbaijan uh, is also nominating Trump for their Nobel Peace Prize. That's going to be interesting to see if they do award it to him. How would Trump handle that? How would Trump handle that? Would he say, I don't know, you gave it to Obama and he didn't do anything but start wars? Uh, he's gracious enough where he'll think of something of how to. That's if they even do it. They're so lunatic. They're so lunatic. They might not even try to offer to him. But defeat Democrats put up a post also about the spew, and it's going to be interesting. What are they going to put in the spew's place? I haven't watched regular television. Oh my God, in 10 years at least. I used to go to a friend's house where he would have crap like that on a 55-year-old man. This was years ago, 10 years ago. He would be watching Ellen and The View. I never could figure that out. But I'd say turn that down, if you don't mind. But anyway, defeat Democrats said massive win. The View is being canceled entirely after losing millions of dollars every year. The View has come to an end. America is tired of all the woke propaganda, and we won't put up with it anymore. The left is done. So, would that merit some kind of review? I don't want to keep saying investigation. Why would a company have something like The View losing millions of dollars a year, like they had Stephen Colbert up for all that time, losing money all the time? Why do they allow that? Darla, nice to see you. Sherry, nice to see you too. Gloria, welcome aboard. Yes, peace through strength. That's right. Well, it's going to be interesting. I don't know that we got final confirmation that the summit is going to go on. But there has been so many things that the media has exercised its power to ignore. So many things that have been going on that average people don't know about. And as I said in one of my earlier, a lot of my earlier broadcasts, imagine yourself being responsible for a counterinsurgency, a counter uh, psyop to battle this uh, illegal psychological warfare campaign. And you're responsible to have the end result be as unified a nation as you can achieve, possibly achieve, avoid violence, and avoid the disintegration of everyday life civility, to the best of your ability. Wouldn't this be the way you do it, even though it's taken months and months and months? And if you go from going down the escalator over 10 years, although I'm convinced Trump was involved with this at least a half decade longer than that. It's been a 15 to 20 year operation. And I don't see where they're making any missteps. But we're at a crucial point now. We're at a crucial point where we have the majority of major players. It's been publicly announced they're being investigated criminally, and or they are being subpoenaed for public testimony about very sensitive issues that we have been well aware of for 10 years. Well, 9 years if you count, the 17th letter started in 2017, October of 2017. Miss Mendersu, how you doing? Melinda. So I don't know if I'm being overly excited about it, but the big fish is being saved for the end. The October testimonies scheduled in Congress, namely Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton. And they're going to be asked direct questions. And it's very telling that the topic is not about Russia, why they're being subpoenaed. It's about Epstein. And I maintain that there's going to be a link established between Epstein's handling money and the Clinton Foundation. That leads us into Haiti, and that leads us into Uranium One. That leads us into a lot of things that we have been knowing about for a long time. The general public is not aware of. And we know that the precedent has been set that they all have to come in. Maybe they would have a problem with Bill Clinton because he's a former president. But if they're talking about acts after he left office, I don't think he can refuse the subpoena or avoid it. They have set the precedent. If you don't show up, you go to jail. Just ask Steve Bannon, Peter Navarro, and how many hours and days did we see President Trump sitting in some courtroom or another over specious crap? So they're going to be on display. And I was busy today doing stuff, and my mind started to wander about the Iran-Contra affair, how the media handled it. Of course, prior to that, I was thinking about Nixon, how that silent coup was carried out against Nixon. But I was thinking about these congressional hearings. And don't you all remember because we're all, roughly the same age group. Don't you all remember the big color photograph on the front page of the Washington Post? Took up the whole half of the paper, top half of the paper. Oliver North standing there holding his hand up to take the oath of office in his dress uniform. Marine Colonel Oliver North taking the oath of office, and this big hearing's going on. Oh, Ronald Reagan's on the ropes, and who knew what and who knew when, and that's all you heard about. There was pages and pages and pages typed out about the Iran-Contra affair. 90% of Americans couldn't even tell you what the hell that was about. And it was all over with. It was just a blip. But it served a purpose at the time to hobble Reagan in his final years as president as a lame duck and to tarnish his image. But my point is, the news organizations right now aren't even talking about these historic subpoenas that have been handed out to top administration officials. Hell, they're not even reporting the fact that the whole thing was a hoax meant to harm the presidency and to neutralize or remove Trump as president through impeachments. They're not even talking about it. This makes Iran-Contra look like a peanut, and they're not covering anything. As a matter of fact, remember the congressional hearings we had recently? I'm talking historically. Alexander Vindman, he took up the whole paper. Maria Abramovich, an ambassador who was telling them in Ukraine, oh, don't worry about Trump. Don't pay any attention. Don't listen to him because we're getting rid of him. But she was portrayed as this hero, female, powerful voice for liberty and democracy, when she was nothing but a traitor. But the coverage that got. We don't even see reports on ABC, NBC, or anything about these upcoming hearings concerning what they've been hollering about, the Epstein files. Every single comment section I go in, there is some of them I'm certain are bots or paid commenters, like I was talking about with Frank on NPC show. He's brought it up many times. They have people, they get something like 38 cents or 40 cents per comment they put in on different sites. And, they change the words a little bit, but they're all pretty much the same. We want to see the files, the Trump files. Don't you think we forgot about the files? Trump is a P file. They'll put in P file, trying to smear Trump with that. It's blown up in their face. So now here they have it. They have questions coming up in public, in front of the world, in Congress, on the congressional record about Epstein. And nobody's talking about it. Well, I started putting in the comments, newsflash, Hildebeest has been to the island. And, some of these platforms I just automatically get blocked. They don't even let me comment. But some of them I can, and I get responses back. So it's a digital battlefield, and we have to stay on the digital battlefield. How many people know that Hillary's been to the island? The majority of Americans still don't know that Clinton's been there 28 times, even though Trump said it plump and plain. So anyway, on the entertainment front, the media front on this battle, this PSYOP battlefield, we see victory with Disney and Gina Carano, or whatever, however you say her last name. One of her posts was about how the Adolf crowd and AZIs turned the youth against adults. She showed a picture I've seen many times because it was in Time magazine, where they're throwing rocks at a woman and harassing her down the street, hitting her with sticks, and she's partially clothed and screaming while she's running. It was a very famous photograph. And she put that up and said, we got to watch how we teach our youth, or some kind of reference to, we can't let this happen again. And that was one of the reasons she got taken down. Hi, Jason. Nice to see you. Justin Bean. Nice to see you. Stanton's here. All right. So anyway, I had something from Jack Posobiec almost 2 weeks ago, about 10 days ago maybe, that I had in the studio, but I didn't put it up because I didn't see it corroborated anywhere else. And stuff is coming out so fast and furious, you got to get a lot of information in one broadcast. So I had it, and I said, well, I'm going to bring it up anyway, even though I hadn't heard from anywhere else. And it was that Mike Lindell had victory in the appellate court. Have you all heard anywhere about Mike Lindell? Because another creator came out with it today. And I said, I was going to mention that last week and my last couple of broadcasts, but I just didn't hear anything else about it. Mike Lindell had a big victory. The media enjoyed talking about his initial losses in the courts, as they usually do. But then they exercise the power to ignore when the whole thing gets flipped. And I'm talking about the $5 million judgment against Mike Lindell. I guess one of the voting machine bozos, whether it was what do they call that thing? Dumb Onion. Or some other dopey company. I don't know. But anyway, they won $5 million, supposedly. And they had articles coming in my feed 3 weeks ago, 2 weeks ago. Mike Lindell tells the court he's broke. He has no money. He can't pay anything. Everybody in the comments, when somebody did a video about Mike Lindell, laughing and making fun of him. Well, the appeals court threw the whole damn thing out. He won his appeal. He doesn't owe them money unless, of course, they appeal it. And where does it go then? I guess it goes to the Supreme Court. And they'll lose there. Not a peep out of the regular news services about Mike Lindell. But they were ready to blast it out there with the initial loss. Then they use their power to ignore and never set the record straight. And that's a pattern of abuse in my book. So that's another victory. Another victory that's not being put out there. So to these, people who have, and I'm not saying it to be funny, it's a serious problem, is TDS. Trump doesn't repeat that to be funny. It's true. It clouds their judgment. And as soon as X got opened up, which was the biggest media victory thus far, they put their hands over their ears and they run to things like Blue Sky and avoid reality, avoid hearing the truth. But you have people like J.D. Vance, and I was thinking about, I can't keep saying I got to do something like that, but I'm going to. I got to get an account on Blue Sky and put a link to my live streams. Maybe we'll get some, hey, folks, if we get some people who are TDS sufferers, let them roll, let them talk. I'll engage with them. You all have been with me when I've done live streams and gotten a person who was suffering from that illness. And 9 times out of 10, it blows up and we part ways. Okay. But 1 time out of 10, I had somebody message me and thank me for engaging with them. And they said they changed their mind about President Trump and the state of our union, what the real threats were. Remember that, folks? How many of you remember that time that I had somebody? And like I said, most of the time, they stand their ground or at least claim to. But hey, if I plant a seed in their mind. I've told you about a good friend of mine who was very successful in banking and insurance. He told me way before this operation ever started, you plant seeds, not trees. It's a lot easier to plant a seed than to try to plant a tree. And that coincides from this advice from this very successful person, coincides with what we learned on the 17th letter, that the pill's got to be easy enough to swallow. I remember when I was guesting on other broadcasts before I started my own channel, people would have me up as a guest. You got to get them to take a pill, not try to make them swallow a cinder block. Okay, they're not going to do it. And so I guess I'll go on Blue Sky. I'm going to change my icon, what you see on the screen here with the Punisher face. I'm going to change that. Kathy remembers. Jason remembers. And if that person is still with us listening, they may have gotten, where they go to other platforms or whatever, as long, if they don't spin out, and go to some of those platforms I've talked about in the past that get people cuckoo. But hey, I'll take 1 out of 10. At least it's something. and then seeds in 10 out of 10. At least I plant the seeds. And if they let the seed grow, good for them. If they starve it out, stamp it out, shame on them. So if I do go on, well, I will try to do that this weekend. Open an account on Blue Sky. I want to change my icon because I found out when people look at the icon you see on the screen, they form an opinion about me. And if they have TDS, they come in with their fists balled up. Okay? And I basically use this icon of the Punisher face for expedience. Stan remembers, Miss Mendersu remembers. There, Todd, somebody planted a seed with him. Oh, I can remember I was dealing with a young man who was running a restaurant. You could just, the place was dripping with liberalism. And he's a smart young guy, and I tried to tell him, you look at the history of the world, and it's just one straight line, and there's this one bright spot on that line, one glowing point. And this was, I bet 20 years ago, I was using this analogy. I was saying that is the United States and the Constitution, the most fantastic document to be written from a not just political, but a theological marriage of politics and theology and natural law. And we're on that little bright dot of however many years you want to say, 5,000 years of human history. And we're in that dot, that 200 and soon to be 50-year dot out of thousands and thousands of years. And out of that 250 years, I didn't know this 20 years ago when I was trying to talk to that boy. But I know now that out of that 250-year flash of genius, that we are in the most crucial point in our nation's history. Next to its founding and its survival through the Civil War, you have this moment. And we've been told we're here for a reason, right? We're here for a reason. And yeah, yeah, Gary, that's right. I remember debate classes. But, if we have somebody come in that would engage, really, if you don't like what they're saying, just ignore them. And that's why I don't have mods. There was a lot of pressure put on when I did have mods to take people down. If they strayed even a little bit, much less the usual, Trump is a poopy pants or something like that. Everybody, right, take him down, take him down, take him down. No, it's too much pressure on the mods, and I want to engage with these people. And if they can't engage like adults, if they can't use language that is not foul or personally insulting after warnings, I got a button, I can hit it, and they're gone. So let them come. They probably won't. But I'll give it a try. But I'm going to have a different icon. I got to, as I've said many times, I'm a one-man band. I got I got to do it myself. I got to do my own, what do they call it? Commercial art or whatever to make it work out. So there'll be some changes coming to the appearance of the channel and how I do my broadcasts. Thursdays won't be regularly on the table. I said it a couple of weeks ago, but I went ahead and broadcast Thursday anyway. But unless there's something big happening, it'll be like Sunday, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Sunday, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, at least 4 days a week. But you all know me. When there's something going on, I've gone 7 days a week for over a month straight, almost 2 months, every single night, if things are happening. Oh, it's here in my studio, Gary. It's a block button. Hi, Randy. Nice to meet you. But I will say, if there are people listening, in the past, I have asked people to take their comments down because if I do it, even though I hit, and I'm positive I hit the remove comment, it blocks the person. Sometimes. I don't know how that blip occurs. And that's happened to a couple of people who've come to my channel. That's why I don't like taking down comments, because I don't want to inadvertently block somebody. I don't mean to. I just want to take a comment down that's a little, off kilter. And I prefer that the person that put the comment up take it down so I don't end up with that problem. Hi, Lori. Well, thank you, Stanton. I'm glad you look forward to when I broadcast. And so I think we're at a point, we've been told to enjoy the show and to spread the word and to focus, okay, and not be distracted by bright, shiny things. And that's what I attempt to do. I started broadcasting 1 year after Biden's term because there was a clickbait business going out of 11.3 laws of war. 1 year, the military can come in. And that was a misreading of the laws of war. And that's why I started doing my broadcasts. And it turned out I was right. And a pat on the back is 18 inches away from a kick in the pants. I'm aware of that. But I've also been on the mark with quite a few other things. And I'm going to risk some predictions from the perspective that I asked you all to consider. If you were ultimately responsible for how this operation would go down, and if you screwed up, you could permanently fracture this nation beyond repair, or you could find unity, a stronger nation when this is all said and done. What would the choices you make be? And I asked that a couple of years ago. And I said, if there were mass arrests when 2020 was stolen, that it would have been riots, and this nation would have been irreversibly divided. And that we were going to have to go through a long slog. And I was right. We went through a long 4-year slog. And we watched our fellow countrymen get slandered, libeled, imprisoned, lost their lives. And I mistakenly said, oh my gosh, Suzanne Boylan. I got her name wrong. I'll call her Ms. Boylan. It's Roseanne Boylan. I got that wrong. And we watched them lose their lives. And we watched the media participate in the special effects, I guess you'd say, of making that event on January 6th look much worse than what it was. I mean, we've been through a lot. We've been through getting rejected, mocked. A lot of people lost their jobs over the poke. I still do it to this day. I talk in circles and messed up words because of the threat of being taken down. And at the same token, I can watch on this platform, people use the most filthy language, simulcasting on platforms that advertise to kids. I mean, we're talking 30-year-old men and women, I guess, and close to 40-year-old men that play video games with, who knows, 12-year-olds, 10-year-olds, 11-year-olds listening in, and using the most disgusting language you can imagine, and innuendo. And they're fine. But if I would say, I'll give you a few examples. If I said January 6th, I had to be careful. I knew that the rhythm, and in the 17th letter, is called the F5 algorithm. I couldn't even say the word algorithm. I'm taking chances right now. We all know you couldn't say pandemic, even though it was a historic event. And many other words that should be common points of discussion. So I'm wondering how free are we now for our speech? And if anything, if they were going to crack down on anything, it would be about what I was talking about earlier. I mean, who wants to get political advice from some 40-year-old that farts around with video games, talking like a sailor around kids? That's right, Debbie. You know, I know somebody in the comments on some of these left-wing YouTube channels, when they say, give us the Trump files, this person started putting in, give us the J6 files. Things like that. That was a good comeback, and it's shutting them up. They don't know how to respond. I had a back and forth with a nitwit, and they don't have to always be nitwits. It's their choice. What did I say I was going to try to do? I was going to try to say for them not to act like nitwits. Instead of me saying that they are nitwits, don't act like a nitwit. So I put in there, this is how low they've gotten. I'm talking like Midas Trash Network, and now this Impact. You're seeing a lot less posts. But when they do post, it was Trump has made the White House gaudy. and it shows a picture of the fireplace with the gold leaf on it, stuff like that. And he's using money to make the White House look like his personal palace, things like that. And the comments are childish, using the old nicknames for Trump that don't make any sense. Some of them are still using the taco, and it's babble. It's TDS babble. What the hell are you talking about? I mean, when I say Hussein Obama, everybody knows who I'm talking about, at least in my circle, very much so. When I say Mercan, everybody knows who I'm talking about, a judge that needs to be removed and referred for criminal prosecution. That's my personal opinion, Mercan. But these, the taco. What are you talking about, taco? Well, the origin of that is Trump always chickens out. Trump always chickens out. Tell that to Soleimani. Blown to smithereens, a grease spot, right? Tell that to the Iranians who had their mountain blown to pieces. But that's the kind of babble they put up. And so I responded about the Oval Office. I said, anything clean, elegant, free of rainbow flags, kitty litter, alphabet graffiti, empty wine boxes, etc., the left doesn't understand. If it's not some kind of freaked out circus you're looking at, they don't understand elegance. They don't understand art. They only understand, the left can only destroy. So comments I got back were, well, I had one guy come to my kind of come to my rescue. He was like, yep, just Russian flags for you guys. Well, this is a guy that was picking on me. He said, just Russian flags for you guys. And I messaged him back. Are you still babbling about, I'll use prattle and babble. Are you prattling about that hoax, that Russian hoax still? And this guy came in and said, you guys want China flags? And then they came in against it, or do you want German flag from 33 to 45? And they take my comments down, but I just said, you're still believing in that disinformation about Russia? You're still prattling about and babbling about that disinformation? He said, what disinformation? It was proven to be a fact that Russia helped him win. Well, they took my comments down. And I responded that Brennan, Clapper, Hussein are all being reviewed for criminal prosecution. And this person they're not a bot because they're responding. Bots can't respond. Or if they do, it doesn't make a lot of sense. I mean, none of them make sense, but anyway, one they didn't take down. I said, Brennan, Clapper, and Hussein Obama, for starters, keep up with reality. Watch what's coming. Accept reality. You'll feel better. And they said, came back and said, no, it's been proven that the Russians helped Trump. That's already been proven. Well, that's a combination of the mainstream media's power to ignore and the left's ability to close their ears and run to places like Blue Sky, which I have to infiltrate. And I will infiltrate. He said, LOL, it was all proven to be true. You keep losing it. I love it. I'm losing it. They don't even have a grasp on reality. That's right. Thriving on nastiness. Hi, Papa Two Bears. Oh yeah, it's to divert attention and to get. We know people. One thing about most people when they get their mind made up and they make declarative statements, uh, they'll move heaven and earth to try to prove themselves right, even though it's ridiculous and proven to be ridiculous. So how do you get over that hump of ego? They're ego driven. Well, I tend to agree with 17 that the thing that will unify people is protecting kids. And now that we see Nancy Pelosi's declaration yesterday of trying to nationalize the ability to harm, in my book, young people chemically and surgically, irreversibly, I'm like, wow, you know, and people nodding while she's saying, yeah, trans rights for 9-year-olds. Yeah, we got to do that. I mean, how far have we fallen? And that brings me to my original concern. Before I even started broadcasting, I was like, wow. After Roe v. Wade, add all this stuff on top of it with the destruction of the Defense of Marriage Act, or openly condoning the things that, will start out like Ruth Bader Ginsburg played a key part in legalizing sodomy and declaring that same-sex marriage was legal. I thought to myself, we might be at a point where God doesn't need us for what He has, for His will to be done. He doesn't need us. He doesn't need this nation or any nation that's not part of His designs. I was thinking, man, everybody who didn't stand up for those young souls, those poor souls that ended up in a dumpster behind Planned Parenthood and never got to take a breath of life. How do you believe God would view a nation that condones that? Is it? But I reconciled with it. This was right when 17 came out. I started broadcasting, I think 4 years after the 17 letter came out. So I said, well, you still got to try, because He's not going to help you if you don't try. And failing to try is failing to care. Because if we cared about it, You would fight tooth and nail to keep the good things, to protect future generations. And that brought me to where Abraham was Sodom and Gomorrah. If I can find 20 people, would you spare the city? Yeah. Yeah, I'll spare the city. And he kept going down and going down. And that's where I said they got the term to J-E and then W somebody down. Who was Abraham dealing with God to save Sodom and Gomorrah? And that's when I said, I got to get involved. I can't just save myself. Like one friend of mine used to say all the time, and he got on my nerves, and I told him it got on my nerves. He kept saying, "Whoa, kill them all and let God sort them out. Kill them all and let God sort them out." No. And I think what impressed God about Abraham was his desire to save a city, even if he could find 10 people. In the whole city, would you spare the city? In other words, he was expressing concern and love for fellow human beings, even though they didn't deserve it. Does that make sense to you all? And if Abraham could do it, we can do it. So these lefties come in with these petty, childish insults, arguments, walking around with their eyes closed, prattling about Russia, 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 and all this other crap. You still got to try to get them to open their eyeballs up. You still got to push for them to reach out instead of balling up their fist. And reach out to who? Reach out to Christ. They don't have Christ in their lives. They don't even know the basis of his teachings, except when it serves them. Well, Jesus forgave people. Don't throw a stone. Forgive everybody. Wash everybody's feet. Let all the immigrants in. No, then they'll try to use Christ. So I don't know. It's a. I guess there will always be an uphill battle, but we have to fight it. We have to fight the battle. Yeah, Gary, it's interesting. Has been. Yeah. Well, couple what Gary's saying there with DC, Trump is saying, and has been saying it since before he was elected, that there would be a federal takeover of DC. And he said, if we have to use the National Guard, we will. And he said very quickly, we can do it very quickly. How is that place functioning? So, we take things in total. But my prediction was going to be peace. Russia and Ukraine, if there's some kind of peace, there's some kind of unified presentation with the main players, China, Russia, and the U.S. concerning. And it's overused. It may seem overused, the biggest crime against humanity. We could say that about a lot of things. But I'm talking about the pathogen, okay? The pathogen. There's so many things that came from that benefited the evil ones, and that's what they are. They disrupted Trump's presidency. It helped them drive them out of office. It helped make 81 million votes seem believable. In other words, it helped them defraud the American people out of the representation that they wanted. It was a hoax. And I will remind everybody that that was one of the charges Hermann Göring was found guilty of that earned him the death penalty in Nuremberg, was that he defrauded the German people out of their right to self-determination, their right to run their own government. That is that event's biggest crime against the United States. But this was a worldwide hoax. Now, yes, it was a different strain of flu, and it was much more aggressive and more fatal to elderly and infirm people. There's no disputing that, because they engineered it that way. But how they used it to stunt the social, psychological growth of young people by keeping them out of schools, how they use it worldwide to stifle trade, business, things that people need to do to put bread on the table, the psychological distress it caused, not only from fear of catching it, but people actually made themselves sick thinking they had it. Families were disrupted and broken apart by people who knew that this was a master plan scam, versus those who were saying, you're going to be the cause of my getting sick. Worldwide distress, worldwide depression, worldwide imprisonment, mental imprisonment, and sometimes physical. How do we address that? How do we get redress for that? Hi, Roland. How you doing? Who was a federal judge in San Antonio? Yeah, use a zero for an O, Bill, when you put that word in there. SHOT. That's why I spell it out. You put a zero for an O. Yeah, it's a pain in the rear end having to talk with liberals. But if any of them wander in here, so we've got this. There's moves being done. We've had another couple of top level FBI agents summarily fired. We've got and another word that I had to watch using, but Trump's used it so many times, and Tulsi Gabbard's used it. Deep state, people still in the White House. Those leaks I was telling you about, those falsehoods that were being put out, I talked about yesterday, where they was claiming Trump said that Putin had to meet with Zelensky first, which was all BS. So there's people still causing trouble with illegal leaks. But Trump took out the IRS commissioner. And this is somebody Trump appointed and got approved by the Senate to be the IRS commissioner. Well, he was removed, and Scott Bessent was put in as IRS commissioner. And I said, oh my, I wonder what Billy Long did to cause his removal. Well, turns out he's just getting reassigned. Let's see if anybody knows where he's getting reassigned to. And Scott Bessent, a lot of you may not connect a name to his face, but he's a guy that is very well spoken and been, talking about Trump's economic achievements. And he's the one that supposedly gave Elon a black eye. But anyway, he's now going to be in charge of the IRS. Well, the one that got removed has been reassigned to be ambassador to Greenland. And he put out a statement. It is an honor to serve my friend, President Trump, and I am excited to take on my new role as the ambassador to Iceland. I'm sorry, I said Greenland, Iceland. I'm thrilled to answer his call to service and am deeply committed to his advancing his bold agenda. Exciting times ahead, Billy Long. So, yeah, I made a mistake there. It's not Greenland, it's Iceland. And as you all know, the names are reversed. They said the Vikings did that to trick everybody. They named the lush, green, beautiful land Iceland, and then the icy, rough place Greenland. So, yeah, he's still in the fold. So it's going to be interesting to see with this IRS thing, Scott Bessent. Have you all given much consideration to what I talked about the other night about Michael Horowitz? Michael Horowitz, the Inspector General, he testified before Congress, and he said anybody that was involved in spying on the White House, spying on candidate Trump, should be very concerned. He said that years ago. Remember that he has also been reassigned. Apparently, to Inspector General of the Federal Reserve Board. Inspector General of the Federal Reserve Board. Trump just made a new appointment to the Federal Reserve Board. So I didn't delve into that too much, but it is definitely somebody we want on the board. And the board can vote to remove Jerome Powell. But what kind of power does the Inspector General of the Federal Reserve Board have? A hell of a lot of power. Who can he investigate? A lot of damn people. He's just coming off of one of the biggest investigations in our nation's history, working with Huber and Sessions, with over 600 people under him, attorneys and investigators, for the last 8 years. Now, he's taking all that information and knowledge over to the Federal Reserve Board. And I mentioned too, he's a dual role. Not only Federal Reserve Board, but Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. You haven't heard a word about him, not in the news or anything. Yeah, Jay. Well, no, you don't got to arrest the IRS. Make them the External Revenue Service. Make sure we're getting all the tariffs and stuff we need. Those are the things that I keep in mind. Got a big ruling today, and the way they're putting it out is ridiculous. But the appeals court, this is Fox News reporting, federal appeals court judges have rejected U.S. District Judge James Boasberg's attempt to hold Trump officials in contempt. The latest in an involving high-stakes court clash that has played out for months in various courts. Okay, final word from the appeals court. Unless somebody tries to take it to the Supreme Court, which Boasberg will just get slapped down there too. But Boasberg, they're leaving out. There's been a professional complaint made against him that could result in his removal. He was one of the FISA court judges. How deep is he in this business of unmasking General Flynn? People like General Flynn, I'll put it that way. And surveillance on senators, President Trump, quite a few other things. But he has been officially slapped down with his order to turn planes around and bring people back from Venezuela. But there's a lot more to that story. Did you hear the reports about the drug cartels? Trump, in his secret directive, this is from Ruski Media, and I also heard it on other outlets, ordered the Pentagon to prepare for strikes against drug cartels recognized as terrorist organizations in Latin America. That was reported from the New York Times. How does the New York Times know there was a secret directive? Trump's been talking about that for a long time. And people say, well, how are you going to justify it? Simple. Predatory incursion. A threat to our national security. Threat to the health and safety of American citizens. What the hell more do you want? Then here's the Wall Street Journal. How do they know this? They're trying to put a face on things before the summit with Putin and Trump. When Putin and Trump have calls, the Russian leader speaks more often, while the U.S. president, quote, usually impatiently and excitedly waits for a chance to interject and listens attentively, writes the Wall Street Journal, citing sources. Who is trying to build that kind of a narrative? That Donald Trump sits attentively, anxiously wiggling around, waiting for a chance to say something, and Putin does all the talking. What kind of op is that? And then you have NBC. NBC reporting about Trump and Netanyahu. Trump yelled at Netanyahu during a recent phone call, NBC News. Netanyahu told Trump on the phone that the information about mass hunger in Gaza is unreliable and fabricated by Hamas. Trump interrupted Netanyahu and started shouting, saying he did not want to hear that hunger is fake and that his aide showed him evidence that children were starving. And this is all anonymous sources. Have you heard this? The Financial Times said the U.S. has imposed tariffs on 1 kilogram gold bars imported into the country since July 31st. This move threatens to overturn the global precious metals market and deliver a new blow to Switzerland, the world's largest refining center, the authors of the article write. Well, tariffs are tariffs. If you bring in candy bars, you get tariffed. If you bring in gold bars, you get tariffed. Okay? But they're making it seem like Trump and his madman tariffs are going to destroy the economy. We'll see about that. I meant to get a copy of this letter. Maybe I do. About Ken Paxton. Ken Paxton is suing Beto O'Rourke. Now, I'd rather see him arrest Beto O'Rourke, but he's suing Beto O'Rourke for, quote, bribing the derelict Democrats to obstruct a vote on redistricting. I think I got a copy of that letter. Man, it's a long letter. I don't know. Let me see what I got. I'd rather just go ahead and, if you got cash passing hands, just go ahead and snatch him up. Yeah, here it is. Yeah, it's I guess it's a civil suit. I'd rather see criminal law. Yeah, that's what I was getting at with what I think is going to be the next steps. The meeting with Putin is a marker, I believe, because you have to have peace and have some kind of stability. Trump can't be running around putting out international fires and then go for high-profile arrests at the same time. And if there's going to be, before the midterms, if there's going to be high profile arrests, it's going to be people that are not currently engaged in politics, are not currently running for office. So, and it would have to be after, you see if you all agree with me on this point, it would have to be after everybody gets paraded in front of the world, not just the American people, but in front of the world in Congress about Epstein Island. And that's not going to finish up till October. And it doesn't matter what they testify, the questions are going to be what people want to hear. Because if they refuse to answer, psychologically, people will answer for them. Especially if the big question is asked. And I hope you all remember what the big question is. And they may have to force the question. And then people will be able to do what we've been doing. Go in with open links and do their own research. Well, really, it's not even research. It's just reading information. It's an encyclopedia. And what I'm talking about is the message board, the 17th letter board. It's a electronic encyclopedia. You want to find out about the island, you put in the word island. You want to find out, I don't know, about Satan, put in Satan. You want to find out about Putin, put in the name Putin and read the posts and read the links and the open source articles that are presented. And then people will get curious and say, well, what does this mean? And start looking. But let me tell you, when you get into the boards and start looking at stuff, you really get involved. I mean, 2 or 3 hours will go by in a breeze, and you'll have all this information in your head. If the average American does that, talk about the end of the Democrat Party. Not only Democrats, but a lot of Republicans too. But for immediate release, August 8th, 2025, Attorney General Ken Paxton sues Robert Francis O'Rourke for Beto bribes, quote, Beto bribes to Democrat runaways to impede Texas legislature. Attorney General Ken Paxton has sued Robert Francis O'Rourke and his radical organization, Powered by People, for unlawful fundraising activity, including potentially operating a misleading financial influence scheme to fund runaway Democrats who fled Texas to break quorum. Anybody on the news read that? The regular news? Democrat runaways are likely accepting Beto bribes to underwrite their jet-setting sideshow in far-flung places and misleadingly raising political funds to pay for personal expenses, said Attorney General Ken Paxton. This out-of-state cowardly cabal is abandoning their constitutional duties. I will not allow failed political has-beens to buy off Texas elected officials. I'll see you in court, Beto. I'll read the rest of it. I just want to make sure I don't fall off the... Oh, you can hear my crickets, Miss Mindersu. Ha ha ha. Yeah, Debbie, they can look up all that stuff. They can look up uranium one, U1, the Clinton Foundation, CF, O'Rourke, empowered by the people, intentionally misled donors to fund runaway Democrats' personal expenses despite advertising it as political fundraising by knowingly blurring the distinction. O'Rourke, empowered by people, sought to take advantage of uninformed donors by directing them to explicitly political fundraising platforms, all while intending to use the funds for the purposes they understood to be constituted as personal expenses. Texas law prohibits organizations from engaging in false, misleading, and deceptive acts such as fundraising schemes operated by O'Rourke and powered by the people. Yeah, when is the regular news going to read that stuff? What? Let's see. What am I missing? Yeah, let's see. What's the last paragraph of this letter? Attorney General Paxton has requested a temporary restraining order and an injunction preventing O'Rourke, empowered by people, from continuing to raise or distribute money for the purpose of funding the runaway Democrat House members. Attorney General Paxton previously demanded documents from Powered by People and opened up an investigation into a Soros-funded group that is also underwriting the quorum break. One thing leads to another to another. The other thing that they've done is they have told them if they want their paychecks, they got to personally come get them. No direct deposit, no check by mail. You got to stick your hand out and have your check put in your hand. Now, if you think about this injunction, let's see which judge it goes before and how this judge acts. Okay, because there's some point where aiding and abetting uh, with these judges, whether it's a bribery scheme with Beto O'Rourke and Soros foundations and all this crap, uh, all the way to aiding and abetting unlawful entry and whatever into the country. There's some point where these judges are going to find themselves responsible, be held responsible criminally, I hope. That's just like that one Dugan. What was it, about 4 days ago? She got her motion to dismiss her charges, which can get her 7 years in prison. The Judge Dugan is the one who let the guy go out the back door, and she got arrested. Either first or second judge to get arrested. She got her motion thrown out. No, you got to go to court, and you are criminally charged. The preponderance of the evidence showed you committed these crimes. Trump put out the highly anticipated meeting between myself as President of the United States of America and Vladimir Putin of Russia will take place next Friday, August 15th, 2025, in the great state of Alaska. Future details to follow. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Do we know where in Alaska? Where they're having their meeting in Alaska? What's it going to be like up there? makes me think of when Reagan met Gorbachev. Where was that? Oh gosh, I can't think of it. Remember when Reagan went met Gorbachev and they had a meeting in really remote, cold places? Oh gosh, and Reagan left pretty much empty-handed. He it was a long, brutal, cold, flipping trip, and they really had nothing to offer. And Reagan stood his ground and said, "No, we're not cutting a deal." Came back to, I forget where they met. You all would remember it. If you Google the Reagan Gorbachev summit. Hi, Larry. It was Iceland. What was the name of the little? It was a little hamlet with a like a hotel or something. Reykjavik. Yeah, there you go, Larry. Reykjavik, Iceland. I hope it doesn't turn out like that. Well, actually, Reagan standing his ground is what broke the Soviet Union's back. Oh, here's the guy that Trump put on the Federal Reserve Board. He appointed this guy. What's his name? It is my great honor to announce I've chosen Dr. Stephen Moran, Miran, current chairman of the Council of Economic Advisors, to serve in the just vacated seat on the Federal Reserve Board until January 31st, 2026. In the meantime, we'll continue to search for a permanent replacement. He's got a PhD in economics from Harvard and served with distinction in my first administration. He's been with me from the beginning of my second term, and his expertise in the world of economics is unparalleled. He will do an outstanding job. Congratulations, Stephen. So we'll see how this guy does. This Stephen guy. Stephen Moran. I got to make sure I don't fall out of my studio. Ha ha, Sparky, you hear my crickets too, eh? You know I'm not in Iceland, I got crickets. Well, Iceland isn't that bad, but it's got grass, but it's cold. Oh, big, beautiful Air Force Base. That's where they're going to meet. All right. Well, it'll be kind of hard for Ukraine to try to do anything. I have to get this. I didn't get to see it, but Trump posted something about Melania. He said, Melania is great. And it's an article about Carville. I've talked about him in the past, and you all know I know a little bit about James Carville, and I do not care for him one bit. He's personally repugnant and politically repugnant. But anyway, Melania Trump earns groveling apology from James Carville. First Lady Melania Trump triggered another public apology from the media on Thursday as a podcast of Democrat operatives apologize for making a false accusation. They tried to smear Melania into the Epstein situation. And that's where there needs to be a problem pointed out, that all these freaks and creeps in the mainstream media have been constantly babbling about Epstein and making innuendo, and they are silent, more silent than these crickets you hear about the congressional testimony. Historic congressional testimony. And, you know, when I get these back and forths with people on some of these comment sections, they don't have a clue. They don't know anything about it. Let's see. Trump's peace deals. India and Pakistan. In less than a year, he brokered peace deals. India and Pakistan, Rwanda and the Congo, Israel and Iran, Thailand and Cambodia, Serbia and Kosovo, Egypt and Ethiopia, and now Azerbaijan and Armenia. What's he going to do next week? Working on Russia and Ukraine. Down near downtown Anchorage. What's the weather going to be like there? But I mean, that's a heck of a resume. Did they leave anything out? Oh, yes, they did. They left out the Abraham Accords. The Abraham Accords. That's big. And Armenian Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan. I think President Trump deserves to have the Nobel Peace Prize. We will promote for that. Today's event, I think, is a very bright expression of that. And what, you know, in the 17th letter, they were talking about Godfather 3. Godfather 3. And a long time ago, I talked about a scene from Godfather 3 where an old mafioso guy turned around after he got two people to talk. He said, "Blessed are the peacemakers, because they are the child of God. They'll be seen as a child of God." Now, remember we talked about that? That might be what this reference is to Godfather 3. Let me see. Oh my gosh. You know, another thing that the mainstream media isn't reporting on that's going to be big. RFK blocking 500 million, to mRNA vaccines, right? We talked about that last night. Well, Kennedy, RFK Jr., was at a little symposium here and came out and said that the mRNA vaccine from COVID goes into every organ. It turns your body into an antigen factory. And we've seen now these epidemics of myocarditis and pericarditis, particularly in kids. How come nobody's batting an eye about that? They're not even reporting it. They're not even giving people a chance to bat an eye. The power to ignore. Well, How do you get around that? Well, Adam Schiff is facing a mortgage fraud thing. I think that's the least of his problems, but they're going through with it anyway. And yeah, it's a serious situation. And Letitia James, identical. They're reporting a little bit about it on the news, making it seem like a petty attempt by Trump to get back at his enemies because they filled out some mortgage papers wrong. He's trying to get back at them. But what they're not reporting about is Letitia James has got a criminal investigation against her for 2 cases. What she brought up against Trump with Engoron and this supposed $400 million judgment, and also where she went after the NRA. Federal prosecutors in Albany have issued subpoenas to New York Attorney General Letitia James, inquiring about her office's civil fraud case against President Trump and about her office's corruption case against the National Rifle Association. Remember that post I put up about violating people's civil rights using your office? Typically, it's called under the color of law. You can get up to 10 years in jail for that. Chicago mayor arrested today? Yeah, turbo cancer. That's right, Pappy. I'm saying words that I haven't been able to say. I'm thinking, things have broken loose with the censorship regime. Chico mayor arrested today. When did that happen? Or maybe it means something else besides Chicago. Ghost in the Machine. What, are the crickets a ghost in the machine? Well, I'm just looking at the comments. The Chicago mayor got arrested, Roland? Well, it must have. I didn't see it pop up in my news feed. Of course, they don't tell you stuff that's bad for them. Are you sure, Roland, that the Chicago mayor got arrested? I try to pay attention to the chats. Well, I was waiting for what's her face, L.A. Mayor Bass Ackwards, to get arrested for interfering with ICE operations. Got to start somewhere. Just might as well be Chicago. And I want to thank Bev and Mike. I should have said that earlier today. They stopped by, buy me a coffee, and gave me a nice little message and stopped by, buy me a coffee. And so starting out the week good is a new week, second week of this month. Thank you very much, Mike and Bev. I have a link in the description if anybody wants to help the channel out. We finished up last week with Hilarious 2, Wayne, Gary, Mike and Bev again, Shannon, Pappy, Two Bears last week. And Miss Menderson gave a bunch of booms for Mike and Bev. I tell you, another big personality, but people haven't talked about him for years, but Apollo 13 Commander Jim Lovell. Jim Lovell passed away. I think it was early today or last night. He was 97 years old. 97 years old. Wow. Yeah, Linda, I want the California Governor Gavin Newsom needs to go. Defrauding the people. No, it's just so much flipping criminality. Why's my screen frozen? There we go. It's hard for me to read these chats sometimes. They don't give me a lot of room. But anyway, folks, well, what do I always say? I say thank you for spending your precious time with me. I'll try to go up Sunday and broadcast, if not Monday, okay? But if you're subscribed and hit the notification bell, you'll know when I go live. And I hope you all remember to give me a thumbs up, because it does help the video to get around. So anyway, folks, I hope you all have a wonderful night. And I'll shut the door and let the crickets do their thing. There was one in the house. Did you ever get a cricket in your house? It'll be quiet, 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 and all of a sudden a real loud cricket, cricket noise. And man, that bothers me, but not anymore. It doesn't bother me anymore. Because I didn't used to have Sadie. And she enjoys crickets as a midnight snack. So, it didn't bother me too much. So anyway, you all have a great night. I'll be seeing you soon. This is Mountain Man, over and out.